500 years ago, a man wrote a book so honest about power that the church banned it, kings feared it, and for centuries people were too ashamed to admit they'd read it. Not because it was wrong, because it was right. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli, and the book was called The Prince. It wasn't written for scholars. It was written for men who needed to survive in a world that punished kindness and rewarded control. Most people who quote Machiavelli have never read a page of him. They've heard the word Machiavellian used as an insult, cold, manipulative, ruthless, and they nodded along, never realizing that everything he wrote was simply a mirror. He didn't invent cruelty, deception, or ambition. He just refused to look away from them. Today, we're going through the rules he laid out, the ones that make people uncomfortable, the ones self-help culture won't touch, the ones that explain exactly why some people rise, while others, despite being kinder, more talented, more deserving, stay exactly where they are. This isn't motivation. This is a map of how power actually moves. Stay until the end. The seventh rule is the one almost nobody applies, and it's the one that separates the people who survive power from the people who get destroyed by it. Before we go further, you need to understand the world Machiavelli was writing in, because it explains why his conclusions were so unflinching. Renaissance Italy was not a peaceful place. It was a patchwork of city-states, constantly at war, constantly betrayed by shifting alliances, ruled by families who would poison a rival at a dinner table without a second thought. Machiavelli spent years as a diplomat, watching rulers rise and fall, sometimes in a matter of weeks. He watched good men lose everything because they trusted the wrong ally. He watched cruel men hold power for decades because they understood something the good men didn't. So when he finally sat down to write his observations, he made a decision that would define his legacy. He would not write about how people should behave. He would write about how people actually behave, and what that means for anyone who wants to survive among them. That decision is why his work has outlived every gentler philosophy written in the same century. So let's get into it. These are Machiavelli's darkest rules, the ones they don't want you to know, because a person who understands them can no longer be controlled by the people who don't. Rule 1. It is far safer to be feared than loved. This is the line people quote and misunderstand the most. Machiavelli never said cruelty is good. He never said love has no value. What he said was more precise and more uncomfortable. Love is a bond maintained by the other person's goodwill, and goodwill is fragile. The moment it becomes inconvenient for someone to love you, they stop. Fear, on the other hand, is maintained by consequence, and consequence doesn't change its mind. Think about the people in your own life who never get taken advantage of. It's rarely the loudest, cruelest person in the room. It's the person whose reactions are unpredictable enough, whose boundaries are consistent enough that nobody wants to test them. Nobody loves them out of obligation. Nobody needs to. Machiavelli's real warning wasn't make people afraid of you. It was this. If you rely entirely on being liked, you have handed your security to people who can withdraw their liking at any moment. And most people will, the instant it benefits them. The rule underneath the rule is simple. Build a version of yourself that doesn't require anyone's affection to remain standing. Be someone people respect the consequences of crossing, not because you threaten them, but because your character has weight. Rule 2. Appearances are often worth more than truth. Here's the one that upsets idealists the most. Machiavelli observed something that every successful political operator, business leader, and yes, manipulator has understood since. Most people do not judge you by what you are. They judge you by what you appear to be, and they almost never verify the difference. He wasn't telling people to be fake for its own sake. He was pointing out a mechanism of human perception. Virtue is slow to prove and easy to fake, while the appearance of virtue produces the exact same social reward instantly. A ruler who appears merciful, faithful, and honest, while retaining the capacity to act otherwise when survival demands it, will outlast a ruler who insists on being those things at all costs, even when it destroys him. This is not a license to lie constantly. It's an observation about where your energy should go. Most people spend their effort trying to actually be good in every private way, while neglecting the fact that the world responds to what is visible. Machiavelli's uncomfortable insight is that consistency of image often matters more, socially, than consistency of interior character, and the people who rise fastest understand which one the world is actually grading them on. Rule 3. Never reveal your full hand. Machiavelli was obsessed with a single idea. Information is power, and the moment you hand someone complete knowledge of your intentions, your fears, or your next move, you have handed them leverage over you. This shows up everywhere in his writing on rulers. Never let a rival know your full military strength. Never let an ally know exactly how much you need them. Never let an enemy know what would actually hurt you. Partial information keeps others cautious. Full information makes you predictable, and predictable people are easy to defeat. Translate that into your own life, and the rule becomes the people who talk the least about their plans are rarely the weakest people in the room. They're often the ones who understand that a plan spoken aloud is a plan that can be undermined, copied, or used against you before it's finished. This is not about secrecy for its own sake. It's about recognizing that oversharing your ambitions, your next moves, or your emotional triggers to people who haven't earned that access is a form of self-sabotage that most people never notice they're committing. Rule 4. The ally who owes you. Everything is more dangerous than the enemy who owes you nothing. This is one of Machiavelli's coldest and most misunderstood observations. He warned rulers repeatedly about a specific trap: elevating someone through pure generosity, expecting loyalty in return. His conclusion was brutal. Gratitude decays faster than almost any other emotion. A person who owes you their position will, over time, resent the debt more than they appreciate the gift. Eventually, many of them will look for a way to remove the person who reminds them they didn't earn it alone. This doesn't mean stop helping people. It means stop assuming help creates permanent loyalty. Loyalty that isn't reinforced by shared interest, mutual respect, or ongoing value tends to erode, quietly, and often exactly when you need it most. The people who understand this rule build relationships based on continued mutual benefit, not past favors. They know that "I made them who they are" is one of the weakest forms of security a person can rely on. Rule 5. Fortune favors the bold, not the cautious. Machiavelli used a metaphor that has survived 5 centuries. He compared fortune to a river that floods without warning. Most people spend their lives building small defenses after the flood has already destroyed everything, reacting, never preparing. The few who study the river, who prepare the banks before the water rises, are the ones who survive the seasons that ruin everyone else. His conclusion was uncomfortable for anyone who prefers to play it safe. Excessive caution doesn't protect you from fortune. It just guarantees you'll never be positioned to take advantage of it when it turns in your favor. He believed boldness, applied with timing and preparation, beats hesitation applied with perfect patience. This is the rule most self-help content waters down into take risks, which misses the actual mechanism. Machiavelli wasn't telling people to be reckless. He was telling them that the cost of perpetual caution is invisible, but it's still a cost, and most people never calculate what their hesitation has already taken from them. Rule 6. Never depend on words alone. Judge by action under pressure. Machiavelli had little patience for promises. He'd watched too many alliances collapse the instant they became inconvenient to keep. His rule was simple and cold. You do not know what someone actually values until circumstances make honesty expensive for them. Anyone can be loyal, kind, and honest when it costs them nothing. The only test that matters is what a person does when loyalty becomes inconvenient, when honesty costs them status, money, or comfort. That's the only data point Machiavelli trusted. Applied to modern life, this rule protects you from one of the most common forms of manipulation: people who are extremely convincing in words and consistently disappointing in action. Machiavelli would tell you to stop grading people on their promises and start grading them exclusively on what they do the moment it stops being easy. Rule 7. Comfort is what destroys power, not enemies. This is the rule almost nobody applies, and the one we promised at the start. Machiavelli observed something counterintuitive across every ruler he studied. It was rarely a rival army that ended a prince's power. It was comfort. Rulers who secured their position and then relaxed, who stopped watching, stopped preparing, stopped treating their power as something that required constant maintenance, were the ones who fell. Not because someone stronger arrived, but because they had quietly stopped being the version of themselves that earned the position in the first place. This is the rule self-improvement culture avoids, because it's not inspiring, it's demanding. It says, the moment you believe you've made it and stop doing the things that got you there, you begin losing ground, even if you can't feel it happening yet. Power, discipline, position, none of it is a permanent state. It's a maintained one. The people who keep power the longest are rarely the most talented. They're the ones who never let comfort convince them the work was finished. None of these 7 rules are comfortable. That was never the point. Machiavelli wasn't trying to make you feel good. He was trying to make sure you weren't the only honest person in a room full of people who understood these rules and simply never told you. That's the real danger of not knowing this material. It's not that you'll fail to use these tactics. It's that you'll keep getting outmaneuvered by people who already are, while you're the last one still playing by rules nobody else agreed to follow. Understanding this isn't about becoming cold. It's about no longer being the only person unprepared for a world that was never as kind as you were taught to believe. If this gave you a colder, clearer way to see the people around you, subscribe. This channel exists for exactly this. The truths comfort culture won't tell you. And if you want to go further than what's possible to say on this platform, the deeper breakdown is waiting for you on Patreon. Link is in the description. I'll see you in the next one.